welcome. Here's what's happening right now. Growing uncertainty with Canada Post workers poised to deliver another strike.
Not a winning situation for anybody.
How soon that could impact mail across the country. Marking a milestone with a royal salute to Canada.
Potential to launch a lot of stuff towards us.
Plus, flaring concerns over the impact of solar storms.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lang. Sandy Ronaldo is away this week. We begin tonight with a CTV News exclusive. Hamilton police have charged a man with drugging and raping a woman and posting the video online. The alleged suspect is at the center of a W5 investigation into a massive online network of thousands of rapists, a global network that W5's Avery Haynes infiltrated. A warning now, the details are disturbing. Avery joins us now. And Avery, what more can you tell us?
Amanda, I can tell you that the charges are a direct result of our investigation into this global network of men who are secretly committing crimes against their own wives and girlfriends.
36-year-old Brian Hayward owns a contracting company in Hamilton. He's charged with sexual assault, assault with a weapon, administering a noxious substance, distribution of intimate images, and voyeurism. Charges that come in the midst of a months-long W5 investigation, infiltrating a global network of thousands of men who teach each other how to buy drugs, how to administer them, and how to get away with it without their victims knowing. With a fake profile on a porn site, I became online friends with the user who has a Canadian flag as his profile picture. He's uploaded almost a dozen videos of different women, all of whom appear to be unconscious. W5 alerted Hamilton police, who raided his home on Friday, seizing his electronic devices as well as drugs used to allegedly incapacitate his victims. In a press release, Hamilton police say victims may have been contacted through dating sites. They highlight a distinguishing feature, an amputation to his left hand. The charges against Brian Hayward relate to alleged crimes against just one woman. We were able to identify at least 5 others on videos posted on the porn website. Hamilton police are now working to identify the other potential victims.
And Brian Hayward had a brief court appearance in Hamilton today. He'll be back for a bail hearing tomorrow, Amanda.
And Avery, this arrest comes as you're working on a documentary called Sleeping with the Enemy.
Yeah, we know that the Giselle Pellico case in France was sort of reported as a one-off, and what we know is these kinds of crimes are anything but rare. We're investigating a case in New Brunswick where a man committed crimes against his wife and 2 former girlfriends, as well as cases in Germany and in Switzerland. These are men who are sharing their videos, selling these videos as though they're commodities in this network.
Avery, thanks for this. And that documentary, Sleeping with the Enemy, airs Saturday, May 31st at 9 p.m. on CTV. Mail and parcel deliveries across the country could grind to a halt within days if Canada Post workers and their employer don't reach a resolution soon. CTV's Abigail Bimman joins us now, is tracking the sticking points. Abigail, there are 2 parties. Are they any closer to averting a strike?
Amanda, as of right now, postal workers are in a strike position come Friday. Canada Post says it's ready to put forward new offers soon. The union says it's still waiting.
This would drop down to maybe 2 or 3 orders in a day.
With online orders generally low cost and high volume, GT Games in Carleton Place outside Ottawa was hit hard by last year's Canada Post strike and estimates another one could lose them up to $45,000 a month.
It's also pushing consumers away from the small businesses and towards the big box corporations that have alternative shipping solutions.
Canada Post and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers are far apart.
We put to the employer some options around some of what we see as the sticking points, and we've been waiting ever since.
CUPW says sticking points are weekend delivery. The union doesn't want it done with part-time hires, as well as pension changes and a request for a 19% pay increase over 4 years compared to the offer of 11.5%. Canada Post says a new offer will come early this week and accuses the union of resisting change.
Trying to hold on with white knuckles onto the past is a death sentence for the Postal Service as we know it.
A newly released commission report found Canada Post is effectively bankrupt. And as one example of Canada Post's decreased market share, in 2019 it delivered 62% of Canadians' packages. By 2023, that dropped to 29%. The commissioner noting private competitors have, quote, almost completely taken over the market. Among the recommendations, phasing out door-to-door service in favor of community boxes.
It's a perk that I love having and I've always had, so I'd be sorry to see it go.
Canada Post says in the event of a strike, it will work to minimize disruption, and if it's a rotating strike, deliveries in unaffected areas will continue. The union at this point will not say what potential strike action may look like. Amanda?
All right, Abigail, thanks. That's CTV's Abigail Bimman. Canadians are paying less at the pumps now that Canada's consumer carbon tax is gone. New numbers out today show that inflation eased because of that, down 1.7% in April. But costs elsewhere, particularly at the grocery store, are going up again. CTV's Colton Praill looked at the data and how beneath the surface it's a less rosy picture. Colton?
Amanda, while the headline numbers may look promising, the core data, which the Bank of Canada relies on for its decision-making, is less rosy. Canadians might be paying less at the pump, but they're paying more for everyday staples at the grocery store, and that's cause for concern.
The cost of living is going up a little slower. New data from Statistics Canada shows the inflation rate cooling off, rising just 1.7% in April. Thanks in large part to Ottawa's scrapping of the consumer carbon tax, energy prices as a whole dropped significantly. Gasoline leading the way at 18% year over year. Lower oil prices and higher supply from OPEC countries also contributing to the fall. But experts caution this drop is hiding upwards pressure elsewhere.
Great news for consumers that the overall basket has been essentially pulled down by so much because of the impact of gasoline prices, essentially. But I think still lots of concern here in terms of policy for the Bank of Canada going forward.
With energy excluded, inflation was up nearly 3%, a higher rate than in March. Grocery prices were a significant driver. Staples like beef jumping 16% year over year. Coffee and tea prices climbing 13%. Fruits and vegetables, both fresh and frozen, were also up.
Over the next 6 months, if you are willing to eat seasonally, we'll probably start getting some relief on Canadian-produced products.
Grocery costs have risen faster than inflation for 3 months in a row.
All of this will be closely monitored by the Bank of Canada, which announces its next interest rate decision in 2 weeks. Experts say a rate cut could still come even if inflationary pressures are rising, if the bank feels the economy is weak enough. Amanda.
All right, Colton, thanks. The economy will certainly be top of mind as the Prime Minister and his newly appointed cabinet get away from Parliament Hill this week to chart the government's plan before the House resumes. CTV's Mike Couture joins us with more. Mike, where are they headed and what else is on the agenda?
Well, Amanda, instead of having a retreat in another part of the country, Prime Minister Mark Carney is gathering with his cabinet and his secretaries of state at Meech Lake, Quebec, just north of Ottawa, to have 2 days of meetings. The Prime Minister left Ottawa around noon to head up here. The focus of these meetings will be on expanding and diversifying trade as Canada continues to face tariffs from the United States. Now, relations with our neighbors to the south will also be a topic of discussion as businesses continue to deal with the fallout from the trade war. Also, dealing with the cost of living crisis and how his government can keep Canadian communities safe will be on the agenda. Now, those were parts of the platform that got him elected, and they are priorities that he wants to focus on. A senior government source tells CTV News these are very much working meetings to set the agenda for when Parliament returns next week. It's clear Carney wants to hit the ground running when the House of Commons comes back on Monday. Last week, he signaled that a middle-class tax cut will be tabled first thing when MPs return next week. He signed a note of instruction directing his ministers to prepare the legislation in the cabinet meeting last week. Carney and his team are also preparing for the throne speech next Tuesday, which will be delivered by King Charles III. That will be another indicator of where this government wants to go and what pieces of legislation they will prioritize. Now, Carney was elected on a promise of change just 3 weeks ago, and the Prime Minister is attempting to do a lot in a very small window of time as Parliament is set to rise for the summer in just 1 month. Amanda?
Thanks so much, Mike. Canada's High Commission in London marked a big milestone with the King and Queen in attendance. Charles and Camilla visited Canada House to celebrate its centennial. Canadian officials showed the royals a floor-sized map of Canada and presented them with a ceremonial key to the building. The pair will be in Ottawa next week where, as we've heard, the King will deliver the throne speech and open the next session of Parliament. Earlier, I asked CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapellos, what substance she's looking for amid all this pomp and ceremony.
Clearly a message about our own sovereignty. I am looking very closely to see how overt it is, right? Just the appearance of the king, the fact that he's delivering the throne speech, I think is certainly substantial and significant. But how far does he go in addressing our issue of sovereignty is, I think, the most important thing to pay attention to. On the substance of what Mike was referring to as well, yes, the Prime Minister has outlined an aggressive agenda, and he certainly wants to do a lot in those 3 weeks that Parliament will be sitting. My big question is, can he? Will he, right? Two separate things. Intention is one, being able to make things actionable is another. Even on the middle class tax cut, for example, is it going to be a simple Ways and Means motion without other things attached to it that allows for opposition parties to vote straight up and down on it? Or will there be more complicating factors? And will there be any additional legislation, including legislation to break down federal impediments to internal trade? There have been promises alluding to that. So whether they come to fruition is something to watch for as well. Amanda.
Thanks so much, Vashi. Appreciate it. Coming up, calling out the cull.
This doesn't make sense. Let's retest these animals.
A farming family's plea to save its ostriches. One person is dead after a structure collapsed at a construction site in Blainville, Quebec, just north of Montreal. Emergency crews were called after the underground walls of a building under construction collapsed. Police say a mobile construction office as well as 3 cars fell into a large hole that had been excavated. In addition to the death, at least 2 people were injured. More than 2 weeks ago, 2 small children in Nova Scotia vanished. The province's Premier, Tim Houston, describes how the disappearance and desperate search have affected the community.
This is a devastating two young children missing. It's hard on the entire community. I know the authorities are running a professional, thorough search, but this is weighing heavy on the minds of certainly people in Pictou County, but well beyond as well.
6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack were reported missing from their home in Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia on May 2nd. That community is in the Premier's home riding. This past weekend, 115 volunteers came out to target specific areas, renewing a search which had been scaled back on May 7th. A British Columbia farm is squaring off against the Canadian Food Inspection Agency over the future of 400 ostriches. The CFIA ordered the flock culled last year after dozens of avian flu deaths to prevent further spread. But the farm delayed the killings in court and says the birds have now recovered. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson now. And Andrew, I understand activists are getting involved.
Amanda, hundreds of people from across the country are showing up at the farm in the BC interior, demanding the birds be saved. But the federal agency insists this cull is going ahead. The CFIA ordered the birds destroyed at Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood, BC, near Vernon in December after avian flu was found. The farm fought for a court injunction that stalled the order. A total of 69 birds on the farm died of the flu, but owners say the rest of them have since recovered, are now healthy and potentially immune.
This doesn't make sense. Let's retest these animals. Let's look at us like a recovered flock.
But last week, a judge sided with the CFIA, greenlighting the cull despite opposition from the farm and supporters, including the area's MP and MLA, as well as questions raised by the Premier.
A little bit frustrated by the actions of this federal agency. We understand the importance of containing the bird flu and the important role that agency plays. What's hard to watch is lack of discretion and ability to evaluate case-by-case scenarios.
Our hearts are full, and it just helps, obviously, all those hugs and encouraging words from kind people of people across Canada that have come here.
Since 2022, close to 14 million birds have been culled in Canada to try to control the spread of avian flu. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been paid out to farmers in compensation. For ostriches, the farm could be compensated up to $3,000 per bird. The CFIA says it will not be sharing a timeline with the public on when this cull will go ahead. Protesters at the farm trying to save the birds are promising to stick around. Amanda.
All right, Andrew, thank you. Beloved American actor George Wendt, best known for playing Norm Peterson on Cheers, has passed away at the age of 76.
Afternoon, everybody. Norm! How you doing, Norm? What do you know? Not enough.
The actor and comedian earned 6 consecutive Emmy nominations as Norm. His death was confirmed by his publicist, who wrote in a statement, "George was a doting family man, a well-loved friend and confidant to all of those lucky enough to have known him. He will be missed forever." Wendt's career also has a Canadian connection. He starred in Death of a Salesman on stage for Ontario's Drayton Festival in 2017. CTV National News is back after this. International pressure is mounting on Israel over its latest military offensive in Gaza as the UN warns of an imminent humanitarian catastrophe. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is criticizing Canada, along with France and the UK, for threatening to take concrete actions. CTV's Adrian Gobriel on the anger and anxiety in the Middle East and here at home.
Amanda, an 11-week aid blockade has partially been lifted by the Israeli government, who now say they'll let approximately 100 trucks into the war-torn region, though humanitarian officials say it's not nearly enough. As vital aid dries up, blood continues to spill onto the streets of Gaza. For innocent civilians, finding the necessities for survival has become a daily battle here. Over the past 24 hours, only a few dozen flatbeds with flour, medicine, and baby formula are said to have been able to cross into the war-torn region.
There are over 9,000 trucks at the border. Prime Minister Netanyahu, end this blockade now and let the aid in.
In a joint statement, the United Kingdom, France, and Canada have said that if Israel doesn't cease its renewed military offensive and lift all restrictions on humanitarian aid, sanctions will be taken.
People are desperate for this food, to feed their families, to feed their kids, to feed their toddlers.
Ahmed Jaber's niece and nephew, as well as his parents and other family members, are living on limited rations.
What's the point of not allowing food? What's the point of not allowing water?
What do you believe the purpose is?
The purpose is killing, genocide.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to social media to condemn the position of the British, French, and Canadian governments, saying in part that the leaders in London, Ottawa, and Paris are offering a huge prize for the genocidal attack on Israel on October 7th, while inviting more such atrocities. On the streets of Jerusalem, some are backing Netanyahu's position.
I think they're a bunch of hypocrites. They care more about virtue signaling to their voters.
For Jaber, whose brother has already been killed and whose loved ones are now living in the blown-out remains of their family home, his perspective is clear.
Stop the bloodshed. Let the aid go in.
Malnutrition is now on the rise, and food shortages will worsen if this continues any longer. That, according to UN officials. Amanda.
All right, Adrian, thanks. Parts of the United States have been pummeled by a new wave of severe storms. This police car in Newcastle, Oklahoma, took a direct hit from lightning yesterday. Fierce tornadoes have plowed through a number of states, ripping apart homes and knocking out power to hundreds of thousands. More than 30 million Americans are on alert, many of them in the same areas hit hard by deadly storms that killed at least 28 people over the weekend. The world's richest man and mega donor for the Republican Party says he's cutting back on his political funding.
In terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.
Elon Musk was speaking virtually at an economic forum in Qatar. He spent nearly $300 million on Donald Trump's presidential campaign and on other Republicans. Musk also defended Tesla and said he's committed to leading the electric car maker as CEO for the next 5 years. After the break, a stellar blackout warning. Why solar flares could disrupt life on Earth. Finally, for us, scientists are keeping a close watch on the sun and the possibility of new solar activity that could result in problems here on Earth. Last week, a major flare caused high-frequency radio blackouts across several continents. CTV's John Venevali-Rao has more on the burst of disruptions that could come from this solar flare-up.
While you couldn't see it by looking at the sun with your own eyes, shooting out from the surface last week, flares that got a lot of attention. Erupting 150 million kilometers from Earth, the most powerful we've seen so far this year.
We're still in the solar maximum era, so these sorts of things potentially can cause problems.
The flares, designated as X-class, which is the strongest, sent out a burst of energy and radiation that led to shortwave radio blackouts on 5 continents. And NASA continuing to watch the sunspot where they came from, called AR 4087.
The fact that it is big has the potential to launch a lot of stuff towards us. Whether it will or not, and will it be aimed towards the Earth, we just don't know.
Solar flares can be accompanied by ejections that can hit the Earth and not only mess with communications, but disrupt satellite operations and even cause power outages.
Northern Lights.
They can also light up the night sky and lead to the northern lights being seen much further south than usual, which happened spectacularly a year ago. The sun is currently at its solar maximum, the peak of an 11-year solar cycle that sees it go from being quiet to very active.
We right now are in a solar maximum. That's why we're getting such great northern lights over the last few months, few years. And that will start to wane, and then we'll have to wait 11 years for it to happen again.
Yesterday, it fired a warning shot at us.
Social media has been all abuzz about the solar activity, which we could see more of this year. Though no more interruptions here on Earth are forecast, at least for the next few days. John Venevali-Rao, CTV News.
That's our newscast for this Tuesday. Thanks for being with us. I'm Amanda Lang. See you tomorrow. Your local CTV News starts right now.